Ever feel like prescription drug prices are just a maze you can't quite navigate?
It definitely feels that way sometimes.
Well, today we're going to try and map out a part of it. We're taking a deep dive into a couple of key documents. There's a news report and an official government briefing.
That's right. And they both focus on President Trump's executive action from back on April 15th, 2025. An action with a very clear goal, trying to bring down the cost of prescription drugs for you.
Okay, so to really get a handle on what this might mean, practically speaking, we've got, as you said, that NPR news report and the official briefing from the administration, both from the same day, April 15th.
Exactly. And our mission here really is to unpack the key bits of this action. What's it trying to do? When might you actually see any changes?
Right, and are there potential wrinkles or other things to watch out for?
Yeah, consider this your kind of inside track without having to read through all the dense policy stuff yourself.
Okay, let's dig in then. What's the basic strategy here? Are we talking about like a massive overhaul?
Well, interestingly, it seems the main approach is to work within the systems we already have.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, one official was quoted saying they are leveraging current programs to deliver meaningful cost savings.
Leveraging current programs. So tinkering rather than rebuilding.
Pretty much. It suggests maybe a faster way to get things done, avoiding the whole new legislation route through Congress.
Which can take forever.
Exactly. But it also means they're kind of stuck within the rules of those existing programs, for better or worse.
Right. So adjusting the dials on what's already there. And a big part of that machinery is Medicare negotiating drug prices, which that came from the Inflation Reduction Act a few years back, didn't it?
That's the one. The Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 set up that framework for Medicare to negotiate certain drug prices. This executive action is really trying to, well, push the accelerator on that.
Speed it up and broaden it out.
Seems like it. They sound pretty bullish, actually. The briefing mentioned they are confident we will eclipse the savings the Biden administration achieved in the first year.
Wow, okay. That's a bold claim. So they're really leaning into this negotiation piece.
Definitely. And they put some numbers on it, too. So Medicare negotiated 10 drugs back in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
The plan now is to add another 15 this year in 2025.
15 more. Okay. And are there any, like, really well-known drugs on that list?
Yeah, they specifically mentioned Ozempic, the one with that list price around $1,000 a month.
Right. That's a big one for a lot of folks. Negotiating that could mean, well, serious savings.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
For people needing that medication, it could be huge.
But there's always a but, isn't there? When would you actually see those lower prices at the pharmacy counter?
Ah, yes, the timeline. This is pretty crucial to understand.
You're right.
Those first 10 drugs negotiated under the previous administration, those lower prices don't actually kick in until 2026.
2026, right. So not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And the prices from these new negotiations, the ones this executive action is pushing, they're not expected to show up until 2027.
2027. Okay, so we definitely need to manage expectations here. It's not an overnight fix.
Not at all. It's more of a medium-term play, it seems.
Got it. Now, something else mentioned is this difference between types of drugs. You have small molecule drugs, pills, mostly, and then biologics, which are often injectables.
Yeah, that's a key distinction in how the negotiation works currently. Small molecule drugs, they, common things like statins or blood pressure pills,
Right.
they become eligible for Medicare negotiation 7 years after the FDA approves them.
7 years. Okay.
But biologics, these are often more complex, maybe derived from living cells, like Humira for arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
They get a longer window. They're not eligible until 11 years after FDA approval.
11 years versus 7, that's quite a difference. 4 extra years of, well, potentially higher prices before negotiation can even start.
Exactly. And the administration is flagging this as a potential issue.
An imbalance, I think, was the term used.
That's it. The concern they raised is that this longer protection for biologics might sort of encourage companies to focus R&D more on those, potentially at the expense of developing new pill-based drugs.
I see. Skewing the market based on the negotiation timeline. So what are they planning to do about that imbalance?
Well, the action directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS, to basically work with Congress on it.
Ah, Congress. Okay.
Try and figure out a way to level that playing field. But, and this is a big but,
Uh-oh.
whatever they come up with cannot increase overall Medicare spending. It has to be budget neutral.
Budget neutral. So find a fix, but don't spend any more money doing it. That sounds challenging.
Delicate balancing act is probably right. We'll have
Yep.
to see what, if anything, comes out of that.
Definitely one to watch. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. What about help that might be more immediate for some people, particularly around insulin and epinephrine?
Yes, that's another piece of this. The executive action brings back a program aimed at getting low-cost insulin to low-income folks. And importantly, this includes people without insurance coverage, too.
That is important. What kind of costs are we talking about?
The potential savings look pretty dramatic, like insulin for maybe 3 cents a vial, plus a small fee.
Whoa.
And for those injectable epinephrine auto-injectors, like EpiPens, maybe capped around $15.
$15 instead of,
Yep,
well, potentially hundreds.
exactly. For people who depend on those, this could be a lifeline, and potentially much sooner than the negotiation effects.
Absolutely. That feels very concrete.
Mm,
What about generics? And maybe getting cheaper drugs from other countries? Is that in there too?
it is. There's a directive to the FDA to try and speed up approvals for lower-cost generics and also biosimilars. Those are like the generic versions of biologics.
Right, speeding up the competition.
Yeah. And it also looks to make it easier for states to set up programs to import drugs, say, from Canada, where they might be cheaper.
State import programs. Has anyone actually done that yet?
Well, Florida got FDA approval for a program. That's the only state so far. But as of last November, apparently they hadn't actually started importing anything yet.
Right.
So approval is one thing, making it happen is another.
Right, hurdles remain. Okay, so opening the door, but maybe slowly. Now, you mentioned potential wrinkles earlier. I saw something about tariffs possibly making drugs more expensive. That seems counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a really crucial counterpoint to watch.
Okay, what's the deal there?
The administration started an investigation. It's looking into the national security side of things related to importing pharmaceuticals and also the active ingredients needed to make them.
National security and drug imports. How does that connect?
Well, the worry might be over-reliance on certain countries, perhaps, but the potential outcome of this investigation could be tariffs, basically taxes on those imported drugs or ingredients.
Ah, and tariffs usually mean?
Higher prices for consumers, exactly.
Yeah.
So if that happens, it could actually push up the cost of many medications, maybe even wiping out savings from other parts of the plan.
Wow. So one part tries to lower prices, another action could potentially raise them. That really highlights how complicated this whole area is.
It's incredibly complex, so many moving parts, and sometimes they move in opposite directions.
Okay. One last piece mentioned was about hospitals and how they get paid for drugs. What's that about, quickly?
Yeah, briefly, it's about trying to better align what Medicare pays hospitals for drugs with what the hospitals actually pay to buy those drugs,
Makes sense.
and also trying to make the payment rules more consistent, whether a drug is given in the hospital, inpatient or in an outpatient clinic.
So smoothing out payment differences?
Kind of. The idea is to tackle potential inefficiencies in how money flows through the system for drugs, making sure incentives line up with cost effectiveness. It's another layer of the pricing puzzle.
Got it. Okay, so let's try and sum this up for you, the listener. This executive action is really hitting prescription drug costs from several angles.
That's right. It's doubling down on Medicare negotiation, trying to expand it. It's looking at that difference between pills and biologics. Reviving programs for things like insulin, trying to get generics and imports moving faster.
But, and it's a big but, the major price drops from the new negotiations are still, what, a couple of years away at least? 2027 potentially?
Patience is definitely needed there. And then there's that shadow of potential tariffs looming, which could actually push prices up for some drugs. It adds a layer of uncertainty.
Absolutely. So, given all these different levers being pulled, negotiation, imports, competition, tariffs, payment rules, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What do you think is really the most critical piece needed to finally make medications truly affordable and accessible for everyone in the long run?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Or maybe the billion-dollar one in this case. Lots to think about as this all unfolds.